Thank you very much for coming and being with us this morning and for interrupting the card playing. And we appreciate you coming out. We're very glad to be able to welcome back Amy Schramm, who is with the Better Business Bureau and has been with us before, talking with us about how to avoid some of the pitfalls of scams and frauds that are always developing, so cleverly, and with the attempt surely just to to part us from our money, and to just to remind us of the strategies of being safe. But although Amy's been out with us before, it's just good information to be reminded of again because things continue to change around us. Mm-hmm. And so we're glad to have you come.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi there. I'm the Community Outreach Specialist for BBB, and I've been with BBB for a little over 2 years now, actually. And within my position as the Community Outreach Specialist, I travel around our office's particular service area and give presentations on a number of different topics. The scams that we're going to get into, identity theft, how to give wisely to charities if you're thinking of donating, and things like that. But I'd like to start by mentioning who we are as the Better Business Bureau, what services we offer to the public for free, and how, as consumers, we can utilize BBB's programs and services to serve as precautionary resource tools for us in terms of signing contracts and searching for businesses that are reliable and trustworthy before we decide to do business with someone. I want to start by mentioning that we're a nonprofit organization, and we're in our 102nd year of service right now as the Better Business Bureau. We were founded in 1912 by business owners unhappy with the way other business owners were falsely advertising themselves. That's really the basis of what we were founded on. Business owners just felt as though everything that went out into the public should be 100% truthful 100% of the time. What an amazing concept that we should be able to trust that the product that we're about to purchase is actually going to do what it says it's going to do. But we haven't been as lucky. We can't just assume that what we're buying or the services that we're buying into are actually what the person is selling us. Unfortunately, even today, we live in a society where it's not necessarily that you can't trust anybody, it's that you can't trust everybody. It's not that you can't trust anyone, it's that you can't trust everyone. Even back then, in 1912, it was necessary for us to be consciously aware of the individuals that we were going to be, maybe handing some money over to or some personal information over to. And so that's the basis of what we were founded on, that we should not have to look at an advertisement that says, take this magic elixir and you're cured for life and you're cured overnight. We should be able to read things that are truthful 100% of the time. And we've become much more than that within the last 102 years, of course, but more specifically within the last, I'd say 15 to 20 years or so. With the internet becoming what it has, the internet is just such a huge, huge resource tool. It can be a bit of a catch-22. When I get into the scams, you'll understand why. But for the most part, it's just an abundant source for us to be able to use, and it's right at our fingertips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for us to be able to research. And so BBB, in keeping up with the times and wanting to evolve and meet the needs of the everyday consumer, decided to develop BBB.org. And this is so that we as consumers would have a free precautionary resource tool to be able to turn to before signing contracts or signing our name to a particular charity organization or to find information on the latest scams that are going on. Actually, before I get into that, I should have started by mentioning that there are 114 BBB offices in North America, and the office that services all of Eastern Massachusetts, all of Maine, all of Vermont, and all of Rhode Island is the office that I'm based out of is in Marlborough, Massachusetts. So from here, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours from here. But again, we have that expansive service area, all of Eastern Mass, all of Maine, all of Vermont, all of Rhode Island. And that's where you'll find me on any given day giving a number of presentations just like this. And we're a necessary entity, really. And it's kind of unfortunate that We live in a society where we need these precautionary resource tools, but it's necessary that we're available to the public. And so that's where BBB.org comes into play. There are 4.5 million business reviews on BBB.org, and about 427,000, it can change on any given day, 427,000 of those 4.5 million businesses are accredited businesses. So when you see a business that has that logo that's in the top left-hand corner of that flyer and brochure, you know that that logo stands for BBB. That's the BBB Torch of Trust. And when it's associated with a business, it means that that business has been deemed worthy of accreditation status with BBB. And they've done this by living up to a series of standards of trust that we've set forth. We have 8 standards of trust that we hold businesses accountable for. As long as a business has been established for at least 1 year, we have some sort of track record to go off of when evaluating a business's reputation and credibility and reliability. And then they've proven to us that they can live up to these 8 standards of trust that we've set forth. They're deemed worthy of accreditation status, and they're able to utilize that BBB Torch of Trust symbol and exemplify to the public and to the consumer that not only are they established and that they're a credible business, but that they're credible to BBB standards. And BBB means something. I'd be surprised if there was anybody in this room that had never heard of the Better Business Bureau. I'll ask that question. Is there anybody here that has never heard of the Better Business Bureau? I'd be super surprised if there was. These businesses that live up to these standards, these 8 standards, there's really no reason why every business shouldn't be able to live up to these standards. They're really quite simple. One is to simply advertise honestly, dating back to the basis of what we were founded on, advertise honestly. And that goes for television commercials, print ads, radio spots, anything that goes out to the public has to be 100% truthful 100% of the time. And we're able to regulate that and monitor that within the BBB organization and check in on businesses and make sure that they are staying as reliable as they are when they sign up with us to however many years after they've been accredited with us. And one of the other standards is that if there does happen to be a complaint filed against a business, and again, as a consumer, we can file a complaint whether they're an accredited business or not. But if it's an accredited business and you need to file a complaint, as an accredited business, they're required to respond to the consumer within 30 days. They have to open up the doors of communication and start to come to some sort of solution and resolution with the consumer that's filed the complaint. The complaint, if it's filed appropriately and formally through us, gets displayed directly on every business's business review for 3 years. But beyond that, the response from the representative from the business gets displayed right along with that complaint. And so not only do we get to read the complaints on these business reviews, but we get to read the entire dialogue that goes on back and forth with the business representative, whether it be the owner, the manager, whoever it is that's handling the complaint, as with the consumer's complaint as well. And to be able to read that back and forth is really quite fascinating. I don't get bored too often, but when I do, I will search through some business reviews and I'll go through some of the complaints that have been filed against businesses, because it's not necessarily just about what sorts of issues or concerns consumers have had with particular businesses, but the rapport and the professionalism and the manner in which these businesses are handling these complaints, that to me is the most interesting or the most telling of what sort of a business it would be to see if it was someone that I would want to do business with. And it's a standard that we take very seriously. 30 days, they have to respond to that complaint. And if they don't, to us, it doesn't matter how long they've been accredited, 1 year, 2 years, 45 years. The moment they stop adhering to any of these standards, their accreditation status is revoked. And then one of the standards that I find the most relevant in terms of the scams that we're going to get into is what businesses are doing with the personal information that they take in from us. It's so important to us that we're safeguarding our personal information all day, every day. And so it's just as important, if not more important, that if we're doing business with somebody, that they are safeguarding the personal information that they're taking from us. And in fact, as an accredited business, the business isn't even allowed to ask for personal information unless it's 100% necessary in order for them to conduct their business. No unnecessary information needs to be passed from the consumer to the business unless it's necessary for them to conduct their work. And of course that goes for social security numbers and credit card numbers and things like that. But if it is a particular business or particular industry that does require some of this personal information, even if it's an address or an email address or phone numbers and things like that, contact information, if they need this information, it's important to us that we know that accredited businesses are safeguarding it once they have it. And so we'd be a little maybe distraught if we walked into a business and we noticed that they had a table that 100 people might walk by every single day and could potentially swipe information from, as opposed to knowing that they have a safe locked computer with antivirus software, anti-identity theft software. They have a big filing system, and a big filing cabinet with a lock and key nobody can get into, and that they're safeguarding the information if they're holding on to it. And then once they're done with the information, if it's for a one-time use or, it's just time to dispose of it, how do these businesses dispose of our personal information? Do they just throw it in the trash bag out by the back door that somebody could potentially rummage through and commit fraudulent activity with? Or do they shred that information so that it is virtually untraceable? Because it's very, very scary, There are still people that are dumpster diving and going through and taking their Scotch tape and piecing together ripped up pieces of paper if it's not thoroughly shredded, or some scam artists don't even have to waste their tape. Some of us are just throwing away our documents with our personal information on it without even taking a care to rip it up into two pieces. And so it's very, very important to us that these businesses are adhering to all of our standards. And beyond those 4.5 million business reviews that are on bbb.org, there's an entire section called the Wise Giving Alliance. This is information on different charity organizations, what sorts of questions to ask if you're thinking of donating, links to external sites to bring you to even more information, and then an entire section called Scam Stopper. And this is a very, very important section of the website, I believe, because it has information on the latest scams that are going on, updates on scams that have been around for a while, and information on how we can protect ourselves. And it's really just about being precautionary. And that's where the BBB free email newsletter comes into play. It's called Scam Alert. We sign up with our email address. I promise you, you get one email a week. I know because I signed up for it because I wanted to be able to know what it was kind of like before I started telling people about it. And I receive one email a week. It says Scam Stopper. It says Scam Alerts, and it says Better Business Bureau in the subject line. And I open it, and it has a lot of information on the latest scams that are going on. And while I certainly use it, to sort of update my presentations as I go along every week as I read them, I really read it more as a consumer. Because we're all consumers, and I use it to make sure that I'm staying savvy and on top of everything that's going on in my personal life, let alone with the educational information that I'm putting out into the public. And I really, really encourage everyone to sign up for this email newsletter. I've gotten my family to do it, and it's just a helpful way for us to stay on top of things. Because truthfully, there's such an abundant array of scams that are going on. And the truth is, unfortunately, they're really probably never going to go away. It's never going to completely diminish that we don't have any scams, any scam artists around. Nobody's trying to dupe us. There's always going to be something. And for us, it's just about realizing that we live in a time, unfortunately, and we live in a society and a reality where that's the truth. And as long as we're aware of that, as long as we're always consciously aware of the fact that there may not be the best intentions with somebody that's calling us on the phone or false intentions, we're going to be fine. It's just about being right ahead of those phone calls and right ahead of those emails that come in, and knowing that it's possible to receive some of them, because then when we get them, we'll be, big red flags will go up way more than they would if we didn't have any idea of what might be going on in the public at this moment in time. And so I'd love to segue into the scams that are going on, but I'm curious if there are any questions before I move into that. Any questions on the Better Business Bureau in general, who we are, or anything like that? Perfect. I do want to mention that if you are on bbb.org Monday through Friday, 9 to 3, you can actually live chat with somebody in the office. And you can always call the office as well, Monday through Friday, 9 to 3, and speak to one of the information specialists. But the beauty of the internet, half of the coin of the catch-22 is that it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that if you do happen to, have a leaking roof, and it starts leaking at 3 a.m., you can start doing your research on who it is, what business it is that you're going to call in the morning, so that when, it's 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and you know that they're in their office at that time, you can be ready on who it is that you're going to call. And I also want to just express again that we really encourage people to utilize us as a precautionary resource tool. We're going to take 100 phone calls from 100 people in one day saying, my roof is still leaking and he ran off with my money, or she ran off with my money. What can you do to help me track them down and fix my roof and get my money back and do this? We're going to do everything we can to serve as that middleman for you. But we would much rather, for the benefit of both parties, receive 100 phone calls in one day from 100 people saying, you know what, my roof just started leaking. What can you tell me about some of the roofers in my area? So that you're less likely to have to call on the other side of things. It's going to be way more beneficial for both parties involved. And truly our vision and our mission is to create advanced marketplace trust and serve as that middleman between the company and the consumer, and create a marketplace, really. Our ideal world would be a marketplace where the buyer and the seller can trust each other. And so we encourage you to utilize us as a precautionary resource tool. It just takes a few moments out of your time, and then if there does happen to be an issue on the other end of things, whether they're an accredited business or not, you can always contact us and we'll do everything that we can to help you communicate and facilitate communication between the consumer and the business as well.
We had an interesting incident this morning at home while we were sitting at the breakfast table and realized a pickup truck with a couple of guys, clearly contractors, driving down on our street, looking at the roof. I've got the old Victorian, clearly looking at our roof, which is okay. But, the roof is okay. But they were clearly looking. I had not called anybody to come and look. They turned around, they came back, they looked some more. We looked at them, they came back. So, clearly trolling, that then they'll stop and leave a card in somebody's home, or, call us, we see that you could use some roof repair, or, ice scams, but that would be one thing that I would, what I would advise somebody to do is call the Better Business, don't assume that this person's going to be an accredited.
Right, it's not taking things at face value,
exactly.
really.
But I thought, really?
Yeah, it's just,
Who's, good morning, Frank, I'm listening to my bowl of milk, I'm like, what the heck?
yeah, it's just knowing that. Yeah, and it's not always going to be the case that they're even legitimate.
No, exactly,
and
exactly, and I would have,
And that's why it's also important to not only to contact the Better Business Bureau, but to also contact the police if you think that something might be a little bit fishy.
The Attorney General's office.
Yep, the Attorney General's office. They want these phone calls. If it's a legitimate business, the Attorney General's office, of course, would handle that. But the police department, in terms of, if you see people patrolling, whether it's on, cars, or they're walking, or they're on bikes, or whatever it might be, if something seems a little fishy, the police department works very much in the same way that the BBB works in terms of wanting to be precautionary. And we don't think that necessarily all the time. We don't think that if we call the police department that they're going to want to hear from us. We get a little nervous. We think that they're going to think that we're, crying wolf, or that if this doesn't end up being a big issue, then the next time something really does happen, they may not take us seriously. But they work very much in the same way. They would much, much, much rather have 100 people call them one day and say, you know what, there's a funny car driving around my neighborhood, than to one day have 100 people call them and say, you know what, my basement was broken into, or my car windows were smashed, or something like that. They really encourage people to utilize their right to contact them and to just let them know. Chances are you won't be the first person to contact them to let them know, and it's just something to put, an extra, check mark next to something that needs to be put on their radar, and something that they need to be really, really checking up on, and thoroughly, most likely. And that's a good segue into the scams. Are there any questions before I move on, though? Please.
My daughter is looking for a house in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And she was told that that real estate agents wouldn't even show her a house unless she had been pre-approved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't believe that.
Yeah, there are, and just Was there one specific realtor that said that?
No, she was told, no, not any realtors.
By a realtor?
No, by a person who works in the bank.
I would say that every realtor in general works a little bit differently. I don't think there's a law against showing somebody a home. Some realtors prefer that people that are house hunting are pre-approved.
Well, I don't believe it has to be. No.
Right, so that's what I'm
Personally, I would
saying.
say, well, and then I wanted to know, a credit check.
Wait, so your question?
My question was that it's not a law, it's not a thing.
No, not
that
like, no.
all realtors will not show you a home.
No,
Unless you have been pre-approved.
no, not at all.
And then the other thing is a credit check. Now, I was told that when your credit is checked, you lose like 3%. If it's like 88, you can go to 85.
I'm not sure of the specifics of what percentage is lost in your credit score or credit number when you do a credit check. I don't think that it's necessarily every time. I think if you start to excessively check your credit score, then it can be damaging to your score. The banks, the credit bureaus, they get a little nervous. Why are they checking so much? What's going on with their account? What sort of funds don't they have anymore?
This bank that she went to, and I'm sorry that I forgot the name of it, it's fairly new, I've heard it before, did get it pre-approved. And then they offered her, the loan if she, when and if she finds a house and all. I kind of question that.
Oh, and so the bank that she asked, the bank that told her, no, you have to be pre-approved before a realtor shows you, is the bank that said, we'll pre-approve you?
Yes.
Yeah, I would get a second and third and fourth and fifth opinion probably. Not that the bank may not be doing their job or doing what they might do to get clients to come in. But I would say before she signs any paperwork with them or actually does get pre-approved and give them any sort of personal information, because when you're doing that, your social security number is a number that you're handing over. I would definitely have her research some other banks in the area that you can be pre-approved by, and also just private lenders as well. People that do it for a living outside of the bank sector. A lot of times I think you can find better deals doing that. Don't quote me on it. I won't give you any specifics, but it's worth looking into and not, again, taking at face value that this one bank is the one that says that they're the only ones that can help and things like that. But it's good that she is being precautionary too, because again, that's really just what it's all about. It's about knowing that it's our prerogative, that if somebody's offering us something right now, then they're going to respect the fact that we're going to go out and do some research and find out if there's anywhere else that we would maybe prefer better. And if we don't find anywhere else, then we can always go back to them, and if they say, oh, well, we'll only sign you up today, you can't come back in 10 days, then you know what? They're not with my business anyway. That's not how, in my mind, ethical businesses should be practicing themselves. So it's great that she's being precautionary and really doing that due diligence. And then, but she hasn't signed her name or any,
But they said, instead of 20%, you can put 3%, but then you'll owe, it's
a PMI and
It takes you 20 years and 4% or 5%.
Yeah, I would take any bit of information that they're giving me for sure, and I would hold on to it, and then I would, go to at least one other, if not two others, or at least two others, at least, and, cross-reference every bit of information. And again, the internet is just so full of information. And actually on bbb.org, we often write blog posts and things about the steps to take when purchasing a home and how to find good mortgage lenders and things like that. So, absolutely. bbb.org.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And you can always call the office again. I believe it's on the back side of the pamphlet. You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, the Better Business Bureau is a good company. They pay all their employees, and where do they get the money?
That's okay. So we're a nonprofit organization, so we're not federally or state funded at all. Although we work very closely, I should say, with some federal and state agencies. We work closely with the FBI, the local police, the state police, the FTC, the Attorney General's office. So we're not funded by federal or state state agencies because we're not a government agency. We are funded by businesses that are deemed worthy of accreditation status. So once a business has been deemed worthy of this status, and they've proven to us that they live up to these standards of trust, and that they're credible, reliable sources, they pay so that the consumer doesn't have to, because the BBB services that are offered to the public and the general consumer are free. 100% of the time, this information that we're looking for on reliable, trustworthy, credible businesses is free. The information that we're searching about charity organizations and scams and identity theft and consumer awareness, like I was just mentioning, there's a lot of information that we offer the public for free. And so it's really quite a spectacular thing to me that we're able to function as we are, because businesses know how important it is for consumers to be doing their research, and that they know that we're probably not going to want to have to pay for it. So they sort of fit the bill for us,
About 10 years ago or more, and I had my own business and I belonged to a business.
Oh, yeah?
And so that's how they're paid too. Isn't it?
Right, yeah, that's what I just said. Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
And I did belong to that. We had a meeting once a month, I think,
Oh, maybe. With the Better Business Bureau?
in Florida.
You were with the BBB in Florida? Oh, maybe. I think there's 2 or 3 BBBs in Florida. So, yeah, and every BBB is able
We
to...
had a beautiful breakfast and we had all the new things and everything, and so
That's wonderful. Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, like I mentioned, there's 114 BBB offices in North America, but there's an umbrella BBB that is based out of Washington, D.C. And I believe it's Washington, D.C. And every office functions a little bit differently, but we all follow the same guidelines from this umbrella. So, you may have had monthly meetings, where you could go in and mingle and network with other like businesses, accredited businesses, with that particular office, Every once in a while we'll do small business nights, and we'll have accredited business owners able to come in, or even non-accredited business owners able to come in and learn about the benefits of being accredited, and just the benefit of networking in the community that we live in too. So that's great to hear. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to get into some of the scams, but don't feel like you can't raise your hand and ask a question throughout. But, as I was mentioning, the internet is a big catch-22 because it's so full of information for all of us. I mean, really. But because it's so easy for us to find information, it's easy for scam artists to find information. And believe it or not, we have information that's on there. I guaranteed if you Googled your name, you would find more information than you thought could be possible on the internet. Your name, your address, your phone number, where you used to reside, how many siblings you have, what their names are, what their ages are, maybe what elementary school you went to, what college you went to. There's so much information on the internet. And I'm promising you that I didn't put it there, and I know that you didn't put it there, but somebody did. And it's there. And we don't necessarily always think of that when we're getting some of these emails that come in, or we're getting some of these phone calls that come in. We're not necessarily thinking to ourselves, oh, the person on the other end of the phone that just said my name, they must know it because they know me. Where, in fact, it's that they got it off the internet, or they got it from some list somewhere from another scam artist or another maybe legitimate organization. And we aren't always thinking of that as these scams progress. And the truth is, we've been scammed, we've had phone calls and things like that for years. But now we're really inundated with it. And we're getting scammed through the internet and over the phone and things like that in a little bit of a different method. We're still getting phone calls every now and then from people saying, oh, it's a big pyramid scheme. You can make this much money if you do this, that, and this, or you won $20,000, or you owe $20,000, or you have a free cruise, or very, very, very high and low extremes that would set off big red flags to us. That's not really as common now. It still happens, but it's not the main method that I've seen scam artists use in their tactics. What they're doing now, because of a resource like the internet being out there with all of our little bits of personal information on there, they're calling and emailing, and they are claiming and impersonating legitimate organizations. They're either claiming to be from real organizations or they're claiming to be from an organization that sounds just like a real organization. And so, particularly with the emails, we're getting emails that look like they're from Bank of America, they look like they're from Verizon, they look like they're from Comcast, they look like they're from BBB, and they're some of the biggest scams of the last few years, actually. They're called email phishing scams, and these are dangerous because they look so realistic to us. They're not, the emails that we get of that we are a cousin of a Nigerian prince and we have rubies and ruples. This is something that looks incredibly legitimate that isn't necessarily going to, be a big red flag waving in front of us. It has the header and the logo and the entire format of an email that we may typically receive. And maybe the email address is just a tiny bit off. Maybe instead of Comcast.net, it's Comcast.com or Comcast.org or something like that. Or it's Comcast.com, but the O in Comcast is a 0 instead of an O. And we're just glancing at it quickly because we're used to maybe getting updates from Comcast, if we are. And then we're opening it and it looks very official. And it's not necessarily the opening of the email that's the most dangerous part, although it's very dangerous just to do that, just in terms of it being able to potentially open up the doors to falling victim to some fraudulent activity. But it's the link that more often than not is going to be associated in the body of the email. So we'll get an email that looks like it's from, let's say, Comcast, and if that's our provider, and it says, "Dear valued customer," or it even potentially could say our name, and it says, "Dear Nancy Smith," or "Dear Nancy," with a comma, and it has some information, and then it'll say, we've decided to change some of our policies, and if you just follow this link, we'll take you to our guideline, our new policy page where you can keep up to date on some of our new happenings. And so people are clicking on the link because we're curious. And the truth is, the trouble is within the link, because one of two things can happen, and oddly enough, I personally think that the second thing that can happen is worse than the first. After I tell you the first, you may not believe me. But the first thing that can happen is that the virus associated with that link is so strong. The scam artist, the hacker, the computer hacker who is, I use this term loosely, very smart. Computer hackers are so smart with their computer logistics and the hacking and the code that they can do. It's very fascinating, really. So what happens is the virus sometimes can be so strong for our particular computer and system that when we click on the link, our computer just completely crashes. I mean, it goes black, the screen goes black, and it's done. You can never turn it back on again. And I don't think that's as bad as the second thing. And the reason is, the second thing that can happen is seemingly nothing. Sometimes we click on these links and the screen stays the same. There aren't big flashing lights, nothing looks funky. We click on the link and everything's going about its business, or so we think it is. But the truth is, the moment we click on the link, every bit of our information that we have on the computer is sucked out of our system and sent over to the hacker's computer. And I mean, within half of a second, maybe two, but very quickly. And if this computer hacker is smart, if the scam artist is smart, again, I use that loosely, they don't do anything with the information that they've obtained for quite a while, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe just a few days, and then when they do, they make small purchases here and there so that we're not as likely to notice them. In a bank statement, the bank's not going to pick up on it, and by then we've probably forgotten that we clicked on a link that could potentially be damaging to us or detrimental to us and our personal information. I had a gentleman tell me at a presentation that he clicked on a link that was associated with a pop-up. When we're connected to the internet, we can have these pop-ups, free iPad or whatever it might be. He had one that said, it looked like it was from Microsoft, and it said, "We've detected a virus, click on this link and we'll get rid of it for you." So he naturally just got nervous, and it looked very official. It had the Microsoft logo. He clicked on the link and seemingly nothing happened, so he went on with his business. And within 2 hours, he received a phone call from his bank asking him if he made a $20,000 purchase over in California. $20,000. So he got lucky, believe it or not, that the scam artist did something kind of outlandish and outrageous with his personal information right away. He was lucky that they were using their credit card to attempt to do what they were doing. But the bank was savvy enough to pick up on it, this big purchase. thousands and thousands of miles from where this person resided, and they called him and they let him know about it. If the scam artist, and because of course it was the credit card, the transaction could just be stopped. Because the scam artist did this purchase, it was obvious. What they typically do is make small purchases here and there because they know that we're busy and they know that we don't as often check our statements thoroughly as we should, and sort of micromanage our own statements as they come in, bank and credit card statements and things like that. And so if we see a $5 purchase, that's not even true. We may not even see them. If there's a $5, $10, $15 purchase here, we're not as likely to have it stick out to us. Especially if we share a card. I share a credit card with my husband. If I see a $5, $10, $15 purchase here, there, somewhere, I'm really not going to, call him up or call him in the room and say, what did you buy here? What did you buy there? I'm going to just assume he needed something. If I see a $500 purchase, I'm going to wonder what it is that he purchased and then didn't give me, because I would assume it would be a gift, something like that. And it's our anniversary today, so when I get home now, we should have something waiting. But it's those big outlandish things that are going to stick out to us more. Or even if you've ever noticed, you have a little fee. Maybe it's an organization or a bank or something that we do business with regularly. Every once in a while, we'll get a little fee on there. And sometimes it's $1, sometimes it's $4.50, $1.50. And if 1 million people have this, $1 fee, and 1 million people say, oh, it's just $1, it's going to take, more grief for me to call them and dispute it than it is for me to just ignore it. I'll worry about it next month if it's there. If 1 million people say that, and 1 million people had $1 extra fee on their credit card statement or their bank statement, and 1 million people don't say anything, they just made $1 million, and it's very, very simple. We don't think of it in terms of big picture a lot of the time. We think right here and now, how does this affect me right in this very moment? And when we start to take a step back and we realize, oh, wait a second, hold on, I'm probably not the only one, or that seems a little bit funny. It's just about taking a few moments out of our day and a few moments out of our time and making that phone call to the bank and saying, I'm a little bit curious about this particular fee on my statement or the credit card company. I'm not really sure what this purchase was. Can you remind me what date was it? What was, is there a way to find out what was purchased or whatever it might be? And just doing our due diligence and utilizing our prerogative to ask questions and double check. It's okay if we forgot, A lot of people don't necessarily keep their receipts and then get their statement and, counter every receipt with everything on the statement. And it's not something that we necessarily have to do. It's about being comfortable and figuring out our own sort of way to stay on top of our own engagements and things like that. I had a gentleman that told me that for him to feel comfortable, once a year he cancels his credit card and, he takes 10 minutes out of his day and he, maybe takes a week to get the new card. And then he has a brand new card, and for him, he just feels that much better knowing that whatever was on the last card, wherever that card was used, it's no longer usable. So if it was obtained from anywhere, it cannot be used at this point forward. And so for him, that's what makes him feel comfortable. Everybody is a little bit different, for him, he just knows, I'm going to take 15 minutes out of my day. I'm going to know I'll be without that particular credit card for a week while I'm waiting for the new one, but I'm going to feel that much better for the next year until I get the new one, and then, go through the whole process again. But it's just these little tiny things that we can do to help protect ourselves, or the things that we can do to feel comfortable, and then following in line with some of the online discussion. If we're going to be doing any purchasing online, we recommend utilizing one credit card and always using a credit card, not a debit card. Because that way, if something does happen to go wrong, you have that one card to worry about. And it's much safer and closely monitored in terms of using the credit card. And then, of course, again, the transaction can just be stopped. It doesn't mean that if you use a debit card somewhere and your account is tampered with and your number is taken from you that, and somebody uses it, that you can't get your money back. It's just maybe a 2-month process, I believe, is the minimum, as opposed to, the credit card transaction that can literally just be stopped. Just being cautious online. Some of the businesses on bbb.org that people can research are online businesses. That's the society, that's in keeping up with the time. How many people online shop? love shopping, and I love walking into stores and smelling all the clothes, and all that, and trying on the shoes. But there's something really kind of peaceful about watching the snow fall this winter and being able to shop and use my credit card. And that's always the credit card. And it's always on a site that I have thoroughly investigated to make sure that it is safe and protected. And legitimate. There's so many sites on there that have the potential to not be. And there are some businesses that absolutely are accredited. And even if there are businesses that online stores and businesses that aren't accredited, there's still ways to check their validity and check their reliability and credible being as well. Are there any questions on anything with the internet? I'd love to move to some of the phone scams and sort of tie things together.
I guess I just had one question.
Sure.
I shop on Amazon a lot.
Yes.
And I let them keep my credit card number. Is that a really bad idea?
That's a great question, actually. I don't want to say it's a bad idea, but it's a bad idea. No, I'm just teasing you. It's something that I've really just sort of decided upon. I give a lot of presentations. I give about 30 presentations a month. Most of them are on scams and identity theft. And it's definitely just not worth it. So like that gentleman who for him feels comfortable getting a new credit card every year, for me, I feel comfortable knowing that there's no one that has my information that doesn't need it. It's just about taking this little bit of time. And for me, there was a store, I hadn't even realized, I hadn't shopped there for a while. A few months ago, I went back to it. And it had maybe been 2 years since I had bought something online at the store. And they had my number on file. It freaked me out because I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember that this online store had my information saved, so I would have a quicker checkout. When all it's going to do is take me to get up and get my wallet and get my credit card and type in the numbers. It's going to take me, a minute and a half? Or, I'll whine and make my husband go get my bag and get my wallet and bring it over to me on the couch. But for me, it's not worth it. It's definitely just knowing that it's a risk, and it's if your information is saved on an online store or something like that. And truthfully, it's just something that I find to be not worth it. If you can really keep track of everywhere that it is, you're a little safer. But to me, who knows? With all the breaches that have gone on, and you just never know. What if a store goes under? They still have your number, And so, for me, it's not worth it. I would recommend not doing it, but it's not something that we're, 100% telling people you can't do this. Of course, it's always our prerogative and our right as a consumer to make educated decisions. But I'm glad that you asked that because it's a big one. It's something that, for sure, within the last 2 years being with BBB, I have implemented in my own lifestyle in terms of where I put my information and what I do. And, truthfully, beyond the internet, I really don't give my personal information to anyone. If you notice, there are some stores we can go in now and they ask you for your zip code and you're buying a half a gallon of milk. Or they ask you for your phone number, your email address, and I always say to them, because I know the answer, but I want to ask them instead of just saying no. I say, do I need to give it to you in order to purchase this mascara? Do I need to, And the cashiers, truthfully, they really have no idea. Their managers tell them, make sure you ask for this and get as many as you can. And for me, it's not necessarily that it's because I know that they'd be sending me and inundating me and calling me with, things that I wouldn't want to receive. Maybe it's coupons, maybe it's, deals. For me, it's not worth it. I would rather know that there aren't these sources that have my email address or my phone number, because a lot of ways that businesses, much like scam artists, are making money nowadays, and it's a good segue into the phone scams. A lot of ways that businesses make money is to sell our personal information. And charity organizations, and they don't hide it, it's right on the policy pages. We distribute your personal information to other nonprofit organizations. We see it. I was getting ready to do a charity walk for a girlfriend of mine, and I didn't want to register online because I didn't want them to have my information on file, and I didn't want to be in. I wanted to help in this moment and then be able to not have to worry about where my information was. And so I looked at the policy page to see if I did register online, where all my personal information would go. And it said, we sell and distribute your personal information, we distribute your personal information to other nonprofit organizations and like-minded nonprofits. And I just thought, nope. And I paid in cash when I got there at the walk, and I didn't write my name down, and I was still contributing and helping, but for me, I just felt better knowing that I was setting myself up to not be inundated with mail, because the truth is, it's not illegal. It's right there. We just may not know to look for it. I had a couple that told me that they were at a restaurant and they filled their name in for a raffle, and they put their name and their address in for the raffle. And of course they never, received it in the mail, they never won. But within 2 to 3 months, they had received 400 to 600 pieces of charity mail come through their mailbox. 400 to 600 pieces of charity mail. And when they told me that, things really started to click for me. And this was probably my second presentation, over 2 years ago. And I tell it every presentation I give because it's a real life example and it's fascinating to me. Here is a restaurant. They didn't have a disclaimer that said, we do not sell and distribute your personal information. This couple wrote their name and address down, and this restaurant took it upon themselves to sell and distribute the names and addresses of these people that had signed their name and address, and they were inundated because of it. And for me, it's just not worth it. If there's not a disclaimer that says we do not sell and distribute your personal information, and even then I would still kind of check up on it to see how reliable that is, I'm going to rest assured that they're probably going to sell and distribute my personal information. Magazine companies, I've been getting Vogue, all of a sudden I had Men's Health and The Economist coming through the mailbox. It's just something that really sort of clicked when they said this. I thought, wow. And it falls in line with some of the scams that occur over the phone. We're inundated with them now. We've received them, every once in a while we get a phone call. It would be annoying, of course. But once we answer the phone once from an unsolicited number, a number that we're not familiar with, and it happens to be a scam artist, simply by us answering the phone, we can answer the phone and hang it up, we can answer the phone, tell them off, hang it up, we can answer the phone, blow a horn in their ear, hang it up, it doesn't matter. And I've heard it all from people that have told me what they do when they answer the phone. Regardless of what we do once we answer, we've answered. And the person on the other end of the phone now knows that it's an active working number. They know it's affiliated with a person, a human being, a consumer. And it's not an answering machine somewhere, it's not a business. It's not an automated service, it's a person. And they take that list of, let's say, 500 names and numbers that they called that day, and they make a check mark, even if the only thing they got that day out of all of those phone numbers was that people answered. They take the list of everybody that's answered, every phone number that had somebody answered, and they sell it. And they sell it to more and more and more scam artists. And that was just so fascinating to me when I learned that, because I thought, of course, it makes so much sense. Where we were, getting phone calls here and there, and now we're just completely inundated 3 times a day, some of us.